Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the absolutely incredible, stranger-than-fiction true story of Victor Lustig. This guy was a mastermind who used psychology, not weapons, not armies, no brute force whatsoever, to pull off what has to be the ultimate heist. We aren't talking about busting open bank vaults or some elaborate digital hacking here. This is a pure masterclass in human nature. It's really about the sheer audacity of pulling off the crime of the century, armed with literally nothing more than a razor-sharp suit and an even sharper mind. So just imagine this for a second. You wake up tomorrow to discover someone has sold an iconic national monument right out from under a global capital. And imagine that they accomplished this staggering, massive feat without forging a single official government decree or firing a single shot. Sounds completely impossible, right? No way that happens. Well, this is exactly what went down during the Roaring '20s.
And look, we aren't talking about swindling someone out of a simple piece of land or swiping a painting that you can quietly tuck under your arm in the dead of night. We are talking about selling a 1,000-foot tower made of 7,300 tons of solid iron, standing proudly right in the absolute center of Paris. I mean, the pure logistical reality of stealing something like that is utterly absurd. But surprisingly enough, that absurdity is exactly why the con worked so flawlessly.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the Master Illusionist.
Victor Lustig's evolution is just absolutely fascinating. He actually started off in 1890 as a well-educated burgomeister's son in Bohemia. But as you might guess, a conventional, quiet life bored him to tears. By 1909, he had drifted seamlessly into the shadowy underworld of Paris and eventually transitioned to what became his ultimate hunting ground post-World War I, luxury transatlantic ocean liners. Over those years, he realized a fundamental truth that would completely define his entire career. He realized that psychology was infinitely more powerful than physical force. So picture him on these floating palaces. He spoke 5 languages fluently, just freely mingling with wealthy industrialists and aristocrats. And he didn't rob them at gunpoint, obviously. Instead, he wore these exquisite, perfectly tailored suits, carried a gold-mounted cane, and projected this aura of quiet, unquestionable importance. He understood, deep down, that these wealthy elites absolutely craved exclusivity. So by acting like he didn't need their money at all, he made them feel like they were the ones getting a special deal. It's brilliant. They practically begged him to take their fortunes just to earn a spot in his inner circle. Moving on to Section 2, setting the trap.
You know, the seed for his absolute greatest scam was planted by something as mundane as reading the morning newspaper. He saw this piece complaining bitterly about the rust and the massive, massive financial burden of maintaining the Eiffel Tower. And we have to remember, the tower was originally just a temporary structure built for the 1889 World's Fair. It was essentially a giant iron novelty that had seriously overstayed its welcome. So while the general public just saw this expensive, rusting eyesore, Lustig looked at it and saw an unprecedented, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But to pull this off, he needed total, unquestionable authority. So what does he do? First, he just invents a role out of thin air, the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Mail and Telegraphs. Second, he gets this elite, highly official-looking stationery printed up, complete with deeply embossed gold seals. And finally, he invites 5 of the top Parisian scrap metal dealers to a highly confidential meeting at the ultra-exclusive Hôtel de Crillon. He didn't just tell a lie here. He created a reality so thoroughly authoritative that literally not a single person in that room even thought to question it.
Let's get into the main event, Section 3, selling the Eiffel Tower.
Just picture the scene for a moment. Lustig leans across this heavy mahogany table in his luxury suite, lowers his voice to a whisper, and delivers this masterful pitch. He tells them, "Gentlemen, the upkeep of the tower has become a catastrophic financial drain. The government has resolved to dismantle it." And crucially, he swore all these men to strict government secrecy, saying there'd be a massive public outcry if word got out. This was just absolute brilliance. By framing the sale as this highly sensitive state secret, he effectively weaponized their own discretion against them. He made sure no one would dare try to verify his claims with any other officials. To really seal the deal, Lustig rented a chauffeured limousine for a formal inspection tour right at the base of the tower. But during this tour, he wasn't looking at the peeling paint or the rust. No, he was looking intently at the men. He was hunting for the perfect mark, and he found him. He identified the most eager and uniquely insecure dealer of the whole group, a guy named André Poisson. Poisson was completely desperate to break into the upper echelons of Parisian high society, and he saw this massive, highly exclusive scrap contract as his golden ticket in. The outcome of this manipulation was immediate and honestly staggering. Poisson was hooked, line and sinker. He eagerly handed over the massive purchase money plus additional heavy cash bribes just to make absolutely sure he won the bid over his competitors. Lustig calmly pocketed hundreds of thousands of francs, and get this, before Poisson even fully realized he had just purchased a colossal national monument he couldn't actually touch, Lustig had already hopped a fast train and vanished to Vienna. Now for Section 4, the Phantom's downfall. When Poussin finally realized he'd been completely played, he was forced into a truly agonizing choice. I mean, think about it. Option A, go straight to the police, expose the massive fraud, and become the undisputed laughingstock of Europe, completely destroying his business and his reputation. Or Option B, swallow the massive financial loss and absolute humiliating silence. Well, Poussin chose silence. And because there was no police report, Lustig became incredibly emboldened. In a display of sheer, unbelievable audacity, months later, he actually returned to Paris to try the exact same scam a second time. So that second attempt was narrowly interrupted when a slightly more suspicious dealer actually went to the authorities. That forced Lustig to immediately flee to America. But he absolutely did not stop his life of crime. He launched a massive counterfeiting ring alongside an associate named Tom Shaw, and they just flooded the U.S. economy with flawless fake currency. Obviously, this ignited an aggressive, relentless Secret Service manhunt. They finally caught him in New York in 1935. But true to form, on the very eve of his trial, he pulled off a jaw-dropping escape from a federal detention center using a makeshift rope of braided bedsheets. Once he hit the ground, he actually pretended to be a window washer on the street below, casually wiping glass before just walking away. Unbelievable. But, his remarkable luck finally ran out 27 days later when federal agents recaptured him in Pittsburgh. Justice finally caught up with him. Lustig was sentenced to 20 years and sent to Alcatraz, the most secure federal facility in America. Interestingly, at the courthouse, even a hardened Secret Service agent called him the smoothest con man that ever lived. And that was a rare sign of respect, earned precisely because Lustig never had to resort to violence. His entire arsenal was purely psychological. Lustig ended up spending a decade behind bars before passing away from pneumonia in 1947, pretty much a forgotten prisoner whose legendary crimes had quietly faded from the headlines. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, the psychology of deception.
Before his imprisonment, Lustig supposedly penned his 10 commandments for conmen, and when you read them, the common thread is just striking. It proves his true weapon wasn't modern technology or even flawlessly forged documents. It was an intense, masterful understanding of our own minds. By being a patient listener, never looking bored, and letting others reveal their opinions first, he allowed his victims to quite literally hand him the keys to their own psychological locks.
This idea perfectly summarizes his entire career. He proved that when people desperately want to believe in a get-rich-quick scheme or a powerful status symbol, they will willingly blind themselves to reality. André Poisson wasn't an inherently foolish man, right? He was just blinded by his own vanity and a deep ambition to be part of the elite. Lustig simply and ruthlessly held up a mirror to those hidden desires. As we close out this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. The Eiffel Tower still stands tall and untouched over Paris today, but the ghost of Victor Lustig reminds us of a timeless truth about human nature. The greatest threats out there aren't always external forces, but rather the powerful desires we harbor within. So, what vulnerabilities are currently living quietly inside your own mind?